Get out and don't ever come back here again. My billionaire daughter screamed, throwing my suitcase at me. What would you do if the child you once nursed through fevers, the little girl whose braids you tied each morning before school, suddenly stood before you in her billion-dollar Malibu mansion, tossed your suitcase at your feet and told you, "Don't ever come here again"? What would you do if the daughter you sacrificed everything for now looked at you like a stranger? Before we dive in, pause for a moment and tell me something. Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Maybe it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. Don't just watch quietly. Drop a comment below and let's see how far this story reaches across the world. Now, lean in and let's begin. The Pacific breeze was sharp that afternoon, carrying the scent of salt and power. I stood at the wrought iron gates of my daughter's home, clutching my old brown suitcase. It wasn't heavy with clothes, it was heavy with memories. Inside were photographs, keepsakes, pieces of a life we once shared. When the gate swung open, I whispered a prayer that my daughter, Serafina, would still see me as her mother, not as an embarrassment to her polished world. She opened the door. My beautiful Serafina, once the barefoot little girl who ran through Bakersfield dust with laughter in her throat. Now a woman draped in silk, her hair swept into a perfect bun, her eyes lined with cold precision. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. Instead, she picked up my suitcase and flung it across the marble floor. The sound echoed through her mansion like a gunshot. Then she spoke, each word slicing me open. "Mama, don't ever come here again." I froze. The chandeliers above glittered like stars, but I felt small, invisible. My throat ached to cry out, "Serafina, don't you remember me? Don't you remember the nights I sang you to sleep? The mornings I went hungry so you could eat?" But my lips stayed sealed and my tears fell silently onto the marble. I bent down, my trembling hands clutching the suitcase, dignity my only shield. She turned her face away, as though ashamed that I even existed. And as I stood in the shadow of her billion-dollar mansion, my heart cracked open with one question that refused to leave. How does a daughter forget the mother who built her dreams from nothing? If my daughter could cast me out so easily, what storm of pride and betrayal had carried her so far from me? Long before Malibu, there was Bakersfield. Dusty streets, peeling paint, and summers so hot the pavement burned. That was where I raised Serafina, my only child. I was young, widowed too soon, and worked every job I could find, maid, part-time teacher, cashier, just to keep food on the table. Our little apartment had broken windows and creaky floors, but to us, it was home. Serafina was always different. Even as a child, she dreamed bigger than the neighborhood we lived in. One night, when the power went out, I found her standing by the window, gazing at the stars. "Mama," she whispered, her eyes glowing with hope. "One day I'll buy you a house so tall the lights will never go out." I smiled through tears, believing her with all my heart, because I had to believe. Those years were hard. I walked miles to work when the bus fare was too much. I skipped meals so she could eat. I stitched her dresses from scraps, telling her they were one of a kind. She believed me, and I let her, because hope was sometimes all we had. Each night, before sleep, I kissed her forehead and whispered, "You are my star, Serafina. Shine bright, no matter what." And she did. Scholarships came. Praise followed. Teachers said she was destined for greatness. I watched her soar higher and higher, my pride swelling with every step. But with each achievement, a little distance crept in. Phone calls became shorter, visits fewer. She was busy, I told myself. She had dreams to chase. But sometimes, late at night, I'd stare at the empty chair at our table and wonder, when stars shine too high in the sky, do they still remember the earth that first held them? Was I watching my daughter rise into her destiny, or watching her drift away from me forever? When Serafina turned 12, I made a choice that nearly broke me. We left Bakersfield for Oakland, chasing better schools, safer streets, bigger opportunities. Oakland was tougher, louder, more expensive. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. Mornings began before dawn with aching feet. Nights ended past midnight with sore hands. Yet every evening, no matter how tired, I sat with Serafina to check her homework. She thrived. She devoured books, won competitions, earned scholarships. Teachers spoke her name with admiration. Neighbours called her the girl who'll put Oakland on the map. I beamed with pride, but in quiet moments I saw how success was changing her. At a school awards ceremony, she pulled me aside. "Mama, don't clap so loud next time. People are watching." The words stung. I had clapped because I was proud, but I bit my tongue, swallowed my pain, and smiled. For her. I kept sacrificing. New clothes for her meant old clothes for me. Late nights cleaning offices meant early mornings with barely any sleep. But I didn't mind. She was my world, my reason. I told myself, it's all worth it. One day she'll look back and know I gave her everything. But as she grew, new voices surrounded her. Coaches, mentors, sponsors. They praised her, shaped her, claimed her. And slowly I began to feel like an outsider in my own child's life. I watched walls rise, invisible but strong, between us. I held on, telling myself that blood runs deeper than fame, that love can't be erased. But in my heart, a quiet fear grew. Was I raising a daughter who would carry me with her? Or one who was already learning to leave me behind? Was my sacrifice building a bridge to her future, or paving the road for her to walk away from me? When Serafina left for Los Angeles on her scholarship, I packed her suitcase with trembling hands. I tucked in her favorite scarf, her Bible, and a letter reminding her to pray when the nights got too heavy. At the bus station, she kissed my cheek and whispered, "I'll make you proud, Mama." I believed her. I always believed her. At first she called often. She told me about her professors, her classes, the city lights that never went out. I could hear the excitement in her voice, and I laughed along even though I sat in our small Oakland apartment, my dinner growing cold. But slowly her calls became shorter. Then they became fewer. And sometimes there were none at all. When I visited her in Los Angeles, I felt like a ghost in her new world. Her friends were polished, their conversations glittered with words I didn't understand. I asked for plain water at dinner, and the waiter rattled off brand names I couldn't pronounce. Serafina laughed nervously, glancing at her friends. My heart twisted. For the first time I saw shame flicker in her eyes, not at herself, but at me. That night I lay awake in a cheap motel, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly. I thought about the little girl who once tugged at my sleeve during thunderstorms, begging me to sing her back to sleep. Was that child still in there somewhere? Or had the city stolen her away? Was I witnessing my daughter's growth into greatness, or her slow transformation into someone I no longer knew? Years later, Malibu replaced Los Angeles. Her house towered above the cliffs, glass and steel glittering against the sky. When I arrived, I expected at least a hug. Instead, the concierge at the door smiled politely and handed me a folder. "Standard NDA, ma'am," she said. "A contract. For me. Her mother." I stared at the papers, the words blurring before my eyes, an agreement not to speak about her, not to share what I saw inside, not even to mention details of her life. My throat tightened. Did I now need permission to be part of my daughter's world? Behind me, the waves crashed, as if the ocean itself raged at the absurdity. I placed the pen back on the counter and pushed the papers aside. "I am her mother," I said quietly. "My love is not something you can sign away." Inside, the mansion sparkled with chandeliers and art worth fortunes. But as I walked through, my old brown suitcase in hand, I felt like a stain on her polished floors. Was this the price of her success? A life so carefully managed that even a mother's love became a liability. If I needed a contract to enter her life, what other walls had she built to keep me out? It was the housekeeper, Maribel, who first showed me kindness. She brought me tea and whispered, "Senora, don't take it personal. This house, It hides what doesn't fit the brand. Her words sank deep. The brand. My daughter had become a brand, not just a person. And in that brand, there was no room for a tired mother from Bakersfield with calloused hands and second-hand shoes. Maribel's eyes softened. "She still loves you," she said, almost as if convincing herself. But her tone betrayed the truth. In this mansion, love had to be hidden, edited, erased. That night, lying in the guest room, I stared at the ceiling and wondered, when did being a mother turn into something that had to be concealed? If love itself was too inconvenient for her world, what else had she erased from her story? The answer came the next morning, when I wandered through the halls. The walls displayed magazine covers, awards, red carpet photos. But nowhere did I see the child I had raised. No baby pictures, no birthday cakes, no awkward teenage smiles. Her past, our past, had been wiped away. Curiosity led me to a linen closet. Behind folded towels, I found a shoebox. Inside lay dozens of unopened letters. My letters. Pages I had written over the years, pouring my pride and my love into every word. Each envelope still sealed, yellowed with time. I sank to the floor, clutching them to my chest. Tears blurred my vision. Each letter had been a piece of me, a mother's heart in ink, and she had hidden them away, untouched, as though my words carried shame. If my daughter could bury even my letters in the dark, what else was she willing to bury to protect her image? That afternoon, Rex arrived, her manager, polished and sharp. His smile never reached his eyes. "Mrs. Reyes," he said smoothly, "Serafina has a brand to protect. Investors, press, fans. There's no space for distractions." The word hung heavy in the air. He slid an envelope across the table. "Money." Folded silence. "Take this. For your comfort." I pushed it back. My voice shook, but I held firm. "I don't want your money. I want my daughter." His jaw tightened, but he said no more. His silence was a warning. That night I lay awake, heart pounding. If even her manager wanted me gone, would Serafina choose blood or business? When forced to choose between her image and her mother, whose side would she stand on? The next evening, Serafina sat me down in her living room, glass walls framing the ocean. She slid a contract across the table. "Mama," she said softly, "this is to protect us both." I read the words, restrictions, boundaries, agreements, paper that demanded I step back, stay quiet, stay hidden. My chest tightened. "Do I need permission now to be your mother?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Her silence screamed louder than any word. I closed the folder, pushed it back toward her and said, "I will never sign away my love." Her eyes glistened with something between pain and fear, but she said nothing more. If even my refusal could not break through, what would it take to reach the daughter I once knew? The next morning I found courage in the smallest act. I cooked. In her sleek, sterile kitchen I made the dishes of our past, spiced rice, beans, plantains. The smell filled the house, rich and warm. For the first time it felt alive. Saffron, her husband's sister, entered and watched curiously. Hesitant, she tasted a spoonful. Tears welled in her eyes. This tastes like home," she whispered. Later that night she confided in me. "I'm pregnant," she said, her hands trembling. My heart soared. A grandchild, a new chance at love. Would this new life soften Serafina's heart, or become another secret she tried to hide? The mansion transformed for the gala. Cameras flashed, guests sparkled. Serafina stood flawless, ready to deliver a speech written by Rex. I read the words on the teleprompter. Not a single mention of her mother, not a single nod to her past. I felt Saffron's hand squeeze mine. "Say something," she whispered. My chest burned. Could I stay silent while my daughter's truth was rewritten before the world? When the microphone went live, Serafina began, "I owe everything to my mentors, my sponsors, This city. My heart snapped. I stepped forward, my voice breaking through the noise. Would my truth free her from the chains of perfection, or shatter the empire she had built? The room froze as I spoke. Cameras turned. Guests gasped. Her name is Serafina Reyes, I said, and before the fame, before the lights, she was a girl from Bakersfield, a girl who wore second-hand shoes, a girl who ate beans and rice 3 times a day, a girl who was raised by a mother's love and sacrifice. Rex's face twisted with rage, but I kept going. I told them of the nights I worked 2 jobs, of the letters I wrote that never reached her hands. My voice trembled, but it carried the weight of truth. When I finished, silence filled the hall. Serafina stood frozen, her eyes shining with something raw, something real. Had I destroyed her image forever, or cracked the mask just enough for my daughter to breathe? Security moved toward me, but Serafina raised her hand. Stop. Her voice was shaky but commanding. She turned to me, her lips trembling. Mama! The word broke her composure. I was afraid, she admitted, tears streaking her flawless makeup. Afraid they'd see you and think I wasn't enough. Afraid they'd take it all away if they knew where I came from. I stepped closer, cupping her face in my hands. Daughter, you are not small because of me. You are strong because of me. Don't ever be ashamed of your roots. They are your crown. Would she accept this truth, or retreat once again into the safety of lies? Her hands shook, but her voice grew steady. Rex, you're fired. Gasps erupted. The cameras caught every word. You tried to erase my family, my truth, but without my mother I am nothing. Rex's face hardened, but his power dissolved in that moment. The guests whispered, cameras flashing. For the first time, Serafina stood not as an image, but as a woman choosing her blood over business. She bent down, picked up the old brown suitcase she once threw at me, and this time she carried it gently into her home. Could forgiveness truly rebuild the bond between a mother and daughter? Or had too much been lost already? You see, my child, months have passed since that night when everything broke open. The Malibu mansion that once felt like a prison of glass and silence now feels like a home. Not because of its wealth, not because of its chandeliers, but because it has been filled again with something money can't buy: love. Every Sunday, we gather around the table. No managers, no contracts, no cameras, just family. The smell of food fills the house. Laughter bounces off the walls, and for the first time in years my daughter looks at me not as a stranger, but as Mama again. And the sweetest blessing of all. The day I held my grandchild in my arms. Tiny, warm, innocent. As I kissed that little forehead, Serafina sat beside me, tears streaming down her face. She held my hand and whispered, Mama, I thought success meant leaving you behind. I thought I had to erase you to rise, but now I see. I lost myself the moment I tried to lose you. I stroked her hair, the way I used to when she was a little girl, and I told her these words that I now tell you, my dear listener. Daughter, true success is not measured by money, or by mansions, or by magazine covers. True success is when you can stand tall before the world without ever being ashamed of where you came from. Fame will fade, fortune will shift, crowds will cheer one moment and forget you the next. But love, family, and roots, these are treasures no thief can steal, no storm can wash away. You can own the whole world and still feel empty, but if you have love and family, you are already richer than any billionaire. That is the lesson I want you to carry with you after hearing my story. Never trade your roots for approval. Never trade your mother for applause. Because when the lights go out, when the world moves on, it will not be fame that holds you together. It will be love. So tell me, what is truly worth more, the applause of the crowd that fades, or the love of family that lasts beyond a lifetime? If this story touched your heart, don't just watch quietly. Like this video, comment if you learned something, share it so others can be reminded, and subscribe for more stories that speak to the soul.